Hey there lovely people, it's Tal here over at the Gamers Rest, and in this brand new series I'll play and then review solo TTRPGs, sharing my thoughts with you all about the mechanics and how the game actually plays. Welcome to the solo review. If you've never played a solo TTRPG before, then this is the series for you. And today we're going to be playing the card and journal game Necromancer Heretic, created by Junk Food Games. Necromancer Heretic is a solo card game where you play a sorcerer attempting to bring back your lover from the dead. The aim of the game is to complete the resurrection and escape before the king's guards can catch and kill you. In order to play this game, you need a copy of the game itself, obviously. You need a pen, paper, and a deck of cards. Now, what I've done is I've created a single playthrough of a hand using a deck of cards, which you're going to see next. And that just going to talk you through the rules, how everything works, and what it looks like. And included in the actual game itself, you will see a very similar explanation, so you get an understanding as to how the rules actually work. But before that starts, the first thing that you need to do is you need to describe yourself and the prince. So help flesh out the main characters, because whilst this is predominantly a card game, there is a journaling element to it as well. By fleshing out your characters, you can then start to, really understand who they are and what part they're going to play based on the actions that you take during the game itself. Now, in order to actually win the game, as I said before, you have to accumulate 5 points before the guards can inflict 10 points of damage on you. And the game uses a deck of cards without jokers, and the mechanics are very much based on 21. We're going to cut across now to past me, who's played a hand of the game, and you're going to see what it looks like to actually play through a single hand of the game itself. See you in a bit. Hey there lovely people, it's Tal here, and in this phase of the review what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a dummy hand of the game just so that you can get an idea as to what it looks like, and I'll talk you through all the different things that you can do in each of the rounds. So in Necromancer Heretic, the idea is that you need to get up to 21 points in order to score a point. You get 5 points, and essentially that lets you win the game, and you can resurrect your lover and go off into the sunset all happy and smiling. However, the guards are there to try and stop you, and they can do damage to you. If you take 10 points of damage, that's it, the game's over and you have failed. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at the setup and the actual run through of what it looks like to play, and I'll just talk through some of the special effects and different things that can happen. So first of all, let's get this up. We need a deck of cards, which we've got here, courtesy of deck of cards, and what we need to start off with is we need to draw 5 cards for ourselves, and these are going into what we call our supply. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Perfect. Okay. The next thing we need to do is add 1 card from the deck into each of the 3 guards' hands. So there's guard 1, guard 2 and guard 3. Okay. And that's the setup. So that's how every game should start effectively. Once you've got that, what you then need to do is you need to go into the main phase of the game, and we're going to talk through that now. So the first phase, phase 1, is what's called the prepare phase. So you can do up to 2 actions, and you can take the same action twice. So the action choices are, you can either add 1 card from your supply onto your hand or onto one of the guards' hands, or you can use a club or diamond card from your supply for its special ability. And the special abilities of clubs and diamonds are, you can add this card face down into any hand and it counts as a 10 or an ace, your choice, and you can change that value at any time. If it's a diamond, then you can use this during the prepare phase, you can discard it and add up to 2 cards from the deck into your supply. So looking at what I've got here, I could discard the 10 if I want to. And that would then add a couple of extra cards onto my supply. I've also got a club, so what I could do is I could turn that face up like that, and that would count as a 10 which could then be added to any hand. Okay, so that's the first part. I've got a couple of choices here, haven't I? So for me, the object's to get to 21. So I would say it makes sense for me to pick up the jack and the ace. And there we go. That's my two actions, and I've got 21. So the moment you score 21, you have to take action immediately, and this is what's called channeled necromancy. So if your hand reaches exactly 21, I score 1 point and immediately discard my hand. If a guard does this, they discard their hand, but they deal 2 damage to me. Well, luckily, it's me that's done this, so I get to add 1 point to my total there, which is great. It's a great start, but I've got to get rid of both of my cards. Right, now, I can't really do anything else at the moment because I've used up my 2 actions. The only other thing I could do at this point is I could do something called bloodletting, which says at any time you can take 1 damage to add a card from the deck to your supply. Yeah, shall I do that? Yeah, do you know what? I think I will. Not that helpful, but it gives me an extra card to play with, but it does mean that I lose a health point. Okay. And that is the prepare phase. Nothing else to be done there, but I'm 1 point ahead and 1 point down. So, in the cast phase, what we need to do is we have to add a card from the deck onto each of the guard's hands that is currently below 17. So, we've got 15 there, 12 there, and 16 there. And then I may, so it's a choice, add a card from the deck into my hand. Now, none of the cards that we've drawn add up to 21, and none of them break either. Now, breaking is where it goes over 21, and that's what's called a death burst. Makes sense. So when a hand breaks, you take 1 card at random from the hand into your supply, and then the rest are discarded. If it's your hand that breaks, you also take 1 damage. And I could, if I want to, take 1 additional damage to pick the card that goes into supply instead of randomly. So say, for example, this was 25. I'll move that across there. That would be a bust. We'd have to remove all of those, and 1 of those cards at random would go into my supply over here. Okay. However, not the case. All the cards are under 21, and I'm not on 21 either. So what we then need to do is we need to move on to the resolve phase. The only other thing that I could do in this round, it says here, during the cast phase, you can use a spade for something called Dueling Whisper. So discard the card that just added to either a guard hand or your hand and replace it with this card. So essentially what I could do if I wanted to is I've got a spade there, and I could, what was just drawn? The king was just drawn over here, wasn't it? So I could do that if I wanted to. And that could be useful for a couple of reasons. So the first reason is that we now need to move into the resolve phase. And I have to take 1 damage for each guard hand that is higher than my hand. So because I've just done that little swap there, thank goodness, I don't take any damage here because that's only 8 and mine's 10. However, I do take 2 damage from this hand here and this hand here. So I'm now down to 7 health points. What I can do, if I wanted to, I can use the final ability, which is called Bone Armor, which is when I would receive damage, I can discard a heart card and it prevents it. And I can do this at any time I would receive damage. So if I wanted to only take 1 damage this round, I could discard the 2, which I might do actually. And then I'm only going to take 1 point of damage from that round. So we'll move that back up to 8. And then the final part is that we need to go into the journaling phase. So this is where we draw 1 card from the deck to serve as an oracle. And that's the 6 of clubs. We put this over here. And we're going to go into that in a little bit later on. But essentially it decides what prompts you get to talk about your relationship and the journey that you've gone on in order to try and resurrect your lover. Okay. But that's it. That is essentially how it all works. There's only a couple other things that you need to know about. So we already talked about the fact that aces and ones and or 10s, or 1s or 11s I should say. When it comes to the guard hand, we don't get to choose what value the aces actually are. So it's always an 11 as long as the hand is 21 or below. If it would go over that, then the ace automatically becomes a 1. Yeah, so we don't get to choose the value of that, only if it's in our own hand. The other thing to be aware of is that if you manage to get to 21 during the second phase, the cast phase, you don't receive any damage through the resolve phase. So you kind of protect yourself, if you like, which is called Nox Blessing. If it's the case that the guards don't have any cards, they always must add a card to an empty guard hand during the cast phase. So during the cast phase, if it's empty, they've always got to add a card to that. And then the only other thing is if you need to take a card from the deck and it's empty, we reshuffle the discard pile to create a new deck, but that does deal you 1 damage to your health as well. And that's it. That is essentially how the game works. So for each round, you go through the 3 different phases. So the prepare, the cast, and the resolve. And then you move on to the journaling phase. Slightly different because that's more about your journey. But yeah, there we go. That is how you play this game. Obviously, all the details are in the pack itself, which you can then refer to. But it really is as simple as that. So that is essentially the mechanical parts of the game itself. And what I'm going to go on to now is my own kind of personal viewpoints on it after having played it myself. And you'll also be able to hear my own playthrough as well. But that's it for this portion of the review. Oh, thank you to me. So let's talk about the last phase of the actual game, which is the journaling phase. So this is the point where you dive into the story of the relationship between you and your love. You're going to create journal entries based on the card you drew, and depending on what happened in the previous round, you're going to focus on the past, present or future. So if you received at least 1 point of damage in your last round, you'll consult the table of the past. If you didn't take any damage and didn't score any points, well, unlucky, you're going to take a point of damage now and consult the present table. And then finally, if you earned at least 1 point during the previous turn, you get to consult the future table. Each table contains cards ace through king, and so you apply the card you drew to the table and read the prompt. For example, if you took damage in the last round and drew the 6 of clubs during the journaling phase, then the prompt would be, were there any signals or codes you use with each other, maybe in letters? It's up to you how much detail you want to add to your journal and how you decide to record it. Depending on whether you win or lose, you're given one last journal prompt to help bring the game to a close. If you win, you're asked about how you escaped and what happens next. If you lose, you're asked to describe your death scene and what happens in your final moments. Now, if you do want to see an example of how the full game runs, you could catch that over on my YouTube channel as well, where I've played through the entire game, including the journaling side of things, and that'll give you an idea as to how an actual game plays out. So, having done that, how does it actually feel to play? Well, when I picked it up initially, I did think that it's a lot of rules for a solo TTRPG. Definitely the games I've played previously haven't been that specific, probably because they've been more journaling games, whereas this has definitely got that set of rules and what you should do and when. But what Junk Food Games have managed to do is create a single player strategy game that will have you not only trying to think 12 steps ahead, but also then cursing your luck when your whole strategy falls apart because you're down to one turn of a card to decide the entire game. The journaling part of the game, which is completely optional, does give you a brief moment to step away from the strategy and consider the impact of your actions, which is really nice to kind of bring it back to the people that are involved in the actual story of the game itself. I definitely recommend that for the first few playthroughs you keep the rules handy and do double check what you can do and when. There were definitely a couple of times where I was annoyed at myself because I missed something in one of the steps which could have altered the game for me, so do have those close by to reflect back on. This is definitely a game for those of you who love a strategic challenge. As from the start, you do feel as if the odds are stacked against you. The journaling part of the game does add some additional depth, but it never feels like the main purpose of the game itself. It's definitely more for people who like a strategic and challenging gameplay, rather than maybe if you're a hardcore journaling who likes the storytelling. If, however, strategic storytelling is your jam, then you're going to absolutely love this game. There's no two ways about it. It is very simple but very clever in what it does. You can pick up Necromancer Heretic on the itch store under Junk Food Games. That's junkfoodgames.itch.io/Necromancer Heretic. And you can also, whilst you're there, check out some of the other games that they have, and do of course follow them across the social media to see what they're up to and check out their new releases as they come out. You can also check out my stuff as well if you want to, which would be nice. So you can like and subscribe. You can follow me across the social medias under the Gamer's Rest. And you can also check out my YouTube, where you'll see more of the reviews that I do and some of the games that I play as well. But yeah, there we go. So that was Necromancer Heretic from Junk Food Games. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough as well. And do come back again and join us once more, where I will be reviewing another solo TTRPG for you to enjoy. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.